Hello, everyone. I think it's a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Happy to welcome you to the Strategic Talks episode one. I think you might be imagining, like, what is this Strategy Talks? What it's going to bring it for you? The next 30 minutes, I think you're going to have a very interesting conversation with Juan Solana. So he's going to be the game changer because he has implemented a resilient automation journey in the large liquor manufacturers of his own company, right? So it's a very interesting conversation. The reason I want to quote it like an interesting conversation is because, as you know, automation has been a decade, and now we have seen several reports, several conversations, people talking about what went good, what went wrong. Most of the time, it went wrong. Automations is not scaling in the organization. It has a lot of problems. People have invested a lot of money in licenses, in infrastructure, whatnot. I think people talk about various problems that they face in RPA, right? But they really couldn't bring the real life use cases right onto the table. And that's exactly what the Strategy Talks is going to bring to you. So today, we're going to have a very live conversation, understanding what is this leadership, Juan Solana, is going to bring or what he has brought in for his organization, right? So this will be a very interesting conversation, and I'm going to give you a best out of what you're going to spend for the next 30 minutes. So without too much of introduction, I would like to welcome Juan Solana onto the stage, please.
Good evening, Dominic. Long time
Hey,
no
Juan,
see.
I think you're looking great today. Good morning.
Thanks. Loving
Yeah.
the honeycombs on your back on the window. I can see all the theming from the Bees Lab side. Nice
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I love the hexagon. So I think it's a good morning to you. I think Juan is joining us from all the way from Costa Rica. I am here, Mario Dominic, your Chief Executive Officer of Bees Innovation Labs, joining right from India. So we are in the two parts of the globe. connecting each other to give you a very interesting conversation. So that's going to be Strategy Talks, episode 1. So, team, I think you will be all excited to know what Juan is going to talk about to us today, right? So, I think Juan, the audience is going to be very interested to know, right, how this journey started. You might had a lot of problems initially when you were thinking about implementing automation in your organization. There might be several roadblocks which could have occurred. So, yet you built a very great, resilient automation journey in your organization. So, can we hear a very short summary about how this experience is all about? How was your decisions in terms of picking up the right solutions for your organization? Let's hear it from you, Juan.
Sure thing, Dominic. Our journey started back in just around 2017. At that point, I guess you're saying RPA or automation overall, 10 years. So a little bit over 6 years here. And clearly, I mean, it was a buzzword. People were, trying to understand, let's say, how can we leverage this and potentially then, let's say, what is the ROI and how can we really make use of this through the organization? So there was a call out for 4 POCs across the organization. So different teams took the work to do a POC under their areas. I worked on the finance side. We took a compliance sensitive process and we worked to implement it. So then, I mean, if you fast forward 2 years later, we were the only team succeeding on the POC. We then had been again happy to work with the solution, but again, it started by 2 years. It started showing some performance issues, and then now causing some headaches. No longer on the compliance side, but now on the performance side. And again, it was costing the team a lot of effort and work. So that's when we met. And we started working prior to that with a couple of other automations within the organization. And after working with you and using your technology and your platform, we then decided to make a change. And what we had implemented a couple of years back, we decided to replace with your solution. And happy to say that after probably let's say what we took probably a little bit under 1 year of hard work, we were able to replace in 2 months with probably with the hard work on your team and the synergy that we had. And that's been now over 3 years that we've had the solution running.
Yeah, I think that was an
ahead.
interesting point here, Juan. I think I'm just touching a point on the strategy side, right? So people way back when the hype was there, as you rightly said, right? RPA was a big hype. I think you just can do any automation with nobody's support. You have a tool, you just record, you play back, and it's all done, right? And we know that. I think this is very difficult because if you look at the responsibilities that the business owners have, they've interacted with many business owners. It's becoming a bit of a marketing hype. That mean I don't want to define it like a marketing hype. I really want to see if your experience is a bit different. What do you think about that, Juan?
No, so definitely again, so the probably the other challenge was on the buying, right? But again, to your point, we were able to show that there was value with the technology. We were able to take business processes. We were able to give back time to the business to focus on analytical or other activities. Clearly, I mean, I think we'll have a lot on our plate, and we were able to then take some of that and allow them to focus on other bigger value items. So there definitely was a way to show the business, and again, that's why we've kept growing. And we've also done it with a small team. So particularly, again, I've been the head of the team. We've had 2 team members now, and again, we work with along you to be able to just manage and develop and deploy new solutions. So definitely, there was some ROI there for the business.
Okay, so I think we could have developed probably the automations. For example, the one we developed, which you were describing just before, we could have developed a UI-based solution, right? So basically, there might be some problems in terms of stability and all those stuff. So what do you think? Developing a UI scrapping based approach than moving to a very native solution approach, which I mean, if you have an SAP, you have an ABAP, so all this nativity can probably help you to accelerate your performance, right? So what is your take in terms of choosing the right technology solution when you want to implement an automation workflow or your processes to be automated or not?
So I think again, there's value to be leveraged when you no longer look at the GUI or the GUI approach. When we have the native, clearly to your point, when we replicate what users are doing, many times it could be that we're not doing the right process. But when we go native, again, we're doing direct, either API, we're doing the app side, we're doing straight calls that are system and clearly enhance our performance and overall then make it resilient. Normally you'll see have a longer pathway to see when something's going to be deprecated. But again, you always have a better performance there and resilience to the automations for that piece.
That was a great point, Juan. I think the viewers, I think you need to note a clear point here, right? So it might take some time in this particular approach. You might say take some time. You might have to convince few people, but that is a very precious time. It will give you a lot of results in the future. You might be knowing what is going to result. I'm going to ask you that question, right? Just hold on. So Juan, I think I have another interesting question, right? So the most beautiful thing that the readers want to hear: what's the cost? So is that the cost is going to scale as you move on in automation? For example, if you build a bot, you keep building bots, and you go to 100 bots, you naturally come back and see that, okay, your infrastructure has scaled, your licenses has scaled, your cost of implementations has scaled. So I think, what was your experience when you pick up certain native solutions, the way you pick up the technology, the way you kind of structure the cost? So I think the readers is going to be really looking at this answer. So I would like to bring that question to you, the hot cake of the session today.
Yeah, so we've grown now. Again, we have just under a little bit under 80 bots, and through this journey of 3 years now, I think it might be surprising to some of our viewers that our costs have kept flat through our journey. And I can even state that when we started with you now 3 years, we've been seeing the growth on the platform, and we recently even moved to Kubernetes, and that has even given us some savings within our infrastructure. We were handling several components, and again, some of our solutions are month-end close dependent and are critical during that time. So definitely being able to migrate now, again, we can scale without having the overhead throughout the month, and we can just scale during the peak times, and it has helped us to reduce our infrastructure side. So definitely not only on my side, but different teams across the organization are happy to see that kind of savings, and definitely our costs have not increased throughout these 3 years.
Okay, I think that was a great answers to the users. I think viewers, I think just to get summarizing just in one statement, right? Your infrastructure or your licensing should not actually scale, because if it scales, it affects your ROI, right? Naturally, and there's a resistance in the organization which you cannot build it back. And the most important aspect is, now I have done everything, I've strategized things, I put my automation onto the ground, and naturally now my headache starts to the other side, right? Operations side. So what happens if something fails? What happens? Oh, I need to put a large amount of team to maintain those bots. I think I'm going to be very nervous to hear this answer, Juan, because I think most of the CIOs are nervous to hear these answers. But I want you to help the viewers to understand how they should strategize that.
For sure. When we, again, throughout this now, 6 years of our journey, we're located in Costa Rica, as you mentioned, Dominic. So we even I visited several other service centers within Costa Rica. We're a big market for service centers, a lot for Americas, but even expanded to other locations. And I visited them for the automation side. Again, I was a bit surprised to see those scales of the teams that were there. But again, has not been our experience. So we've been able to do the support with an agile team. Again, with the native solution, I think we are able to have a consistency across our robots. We have utilization for those same components that normally will happen across the different business processes, and that again helps us to have a more stable solution, manageable from a support side, and probably to your other point, even on the infrastructure side, not having so many VMs. or other servers, if you were to need. Again, there's a hidden cost not only on the hard cost of those components, but clearly on the support to be able to maintain, patch, look after other issues that will always arise through that. So again, from our support side, it's also been a win for us on that end.
Perfect one. I think I also seen certain places where you just have a conference room full of machines, right? And they just say do not touch. I think that is very, very, kind of scary to look at it, right? Because there is one person whom I was just interacting, and he said, "Oh my God, I need to work with the bots. I can work with a human, but how I can work with the bots?" So there was that very interesting conversation, which he was getting surprised, right? Whether I have to come inside the room and see everything is bots, or who's going to do the operations, right? So I think that was a very eye opener for me as well. And I think now, coming to the very fag end of the conversation, right? I think the viewers might have questions, so this is a quick shot for you guys. Now, if you have a question, you can always put your questions on the box that you are being logged on into. If we have time, we will definitely be able to answer your questions. If we are not falling out of time, if you are falling out of time, then probably we'll get back to you in the emails that you have subscribed. So that was a quick checkpoint on the timing. So the most important point now I want to conclude, Juan, is that resilience is all about how you try to think, how you try to execute, how you try to kind of build a very strong ecosystem for you to prove the fact that optimization works at this particular scenario. So now let's look at some of our viewers who are kind of trying to implement RPA solutions or automation solutions in their organizations. They would love to see like what Juan is going to recommend for me, right? So it's important for an experienced person who have done this successfully in the last 3 years, can help them to give some suggestions, strategical suggestions, which can help them to basically strategize their initiatives in their organization. So over to you, Juan, for that question.
Yes, Dominic. So, when you're looking at it, again, there will be many different approaches, and there will be trade-offs. But for sure, Dominic, again, I think one consistent topic through the conversations that you will have is, GUI changes, and it happens all the time. Sometimes they are given up front, and sometimes it will be just a surprise to you when it happens. It's a challenge, definitely. So going back to the native, it's probably, again, from my perspective, it's a very good approach to do it. It will give you less headaches regarding all that piece of the GUI and let's say mimicking user interaction. So definitely that's a very key point to look into when you're talking about implementing a new automation solution.
Absolutely. I think viewers, I think you need to think about it, because I think choosing the right approach is the key for all your success. So please consciously, choose the right approach. And coming back to the viewers who are kind of thinking that, oh my God, I implemented like 10 automations, it's not running fine. I have a lot of headache. I spent a lot of cost. I now want to write, can I make a change, right? So it's always a very costly decision taken by someone, right? Is it what a viable solution for me? So there's so many questions arising for my viewers, right? So I am here representing them. So I take the chance to ask you that question, right? What would you take if something has to be replaced for a better solution?
So you're preaching to the choir, Dominica. As we started the conversation, I think we have migrated from solutions. And there's definitely some pain there. You'll need to revisit those automations and clearly, moving from one platform to the other. But in the long run, the cost aspect that we talked about, the less headaches on the native solution. And again, to my point, working with you and the team, it was very smooth and straightforward. So just a little bit of homework from each of us to look into the process, the documentation, and then being able to convey it straight to you. But definitely, it wasn't on our side. It was not a pain whatsoever. It was smooth, and we've been able to grow further now with our native solution than where we had been now back 3 years when we did the change. So no regrets there, Dominic.
Okay, I think that's your smile gives a lot of confidence to people there. Okay, and you have a very good smile actually. So I think we are almost near the conversation now. I just take a pause if you viewers have some questions for us. So let's look at the chat. What my team is going to convey to me. Yeah, think shoot the questions. Yeah. So I think what's the ideal period of an ROI realization in investing on an automation solution? Wow, that's a ROI topic. So what's the ideal period one? I think it's 3 months, 6 months, 1 month, because sometimes somebody thinks it's I can just get an ROI in just 2 months. So what do you think about it?
Well, for management, I think there's more. You're talking now about probably a year's worth of time. Again, you will see what your processes are, and you might have a lot of quick wins. In my case, I also took some processes that were huge. So our main one is, it's dependent on 200 plus users and managing a lot of information and valuable information, SOX compliance as we talked. So definitely, again, it was immediate to see the ROI, but even when you then take a step back and look over data for 1 year, you're seeing the volume of transactions coming in, where they're coming from, how you've been able to migrate the work that was residing on different teams and either centralize it, etc. So you will see a lot of those benefits, probably again depending on your use cases, through a year's worth of transactions during your implementation, etc. So I think 1 year might be a good cog to do that piece.
Okay, I think there is no magic component here, right? So basically, it all boils down to what kind of processes you choose, what kind of technology you deploy, what's the kind of performance that you get, measure it, and probably see how it's going. Maybe you have to do some more reorchestration to bring it much more better. So it's a kind of a continuous graph which able to tell you and all these stuff, right? So I'll just take another question if it's there. Yeah. So I think here you're speaking about the native automations on SAP. How are you handling change management? Oh my God, I think I didn't cover that question, right? So that's a very big headache if you look at we been implementing for other automation platforms. It always becomes a big problem because SAP does it very well. So you have a transport request, you move the transport request from one system to the other. You have a change management board, you have a proper structure and all this stuff, right? So in RPA, usually this is a bit more overlooked, right? So how do you feel this change management should be worked out for leaders?
Yeah, so I mean, there may be several components to this question. There's an orchestration then on the platform from the automation side, and again, it manages being able to go into call the ABAP native automation, then come back and bring up the status and have the interactivity with the end users. But then from a change management perspective, more on how we deal with the transports and all the topics that you're mentioning, Dominic. It's not, there's no special treatment here. We go through our code review, whatnot, and it's been, again, smooth as any other process. But clearly, again, I think there's a lot of benefits through that piece. So, change management will be the same, our automation transports, any other transfers that we have. But clearly, again, for us on the platform, then it leverages a lot of our, scale and being able to deliver to the business those solutions.
Okay, I think viewers, that's the answers for all of you. I think I have a very personal question which I missed to ask you in the beginning, Juan. The question was more on the compliance side, right? For example, you have invested, you might have some large fives who might be doing the auditing of the whole processes and stuff like that, right? So sometimes people don't know how this really affects their compliance processes. So when you actually make a particular process automated, you choose different approaches, right? People choose the UI based approach. Now we will choose the native approach, and many approaches people take, right? How does it cost them the compliance? How does the auditors look at this particular process and try to give a lot of work or money to do that?
So in the platform, you'll have many use cases, business process. Some are sensitive and then compliance related. Some will not be. Overall, again, we have the platform then under the let's say the SOX or the compliance process. There is no, if you think about it, if it was left down to the end users, there's always inconsistency. Was there support at it? Was the right process taken to achieve the goal? When you bring in automation, again, it's a structured and a defined linear process. Normally, again, when you are deploying those sensitive items, you will engage with the compliance team early on so that they, either they vouch or again, they sign off on the approach that you're using, which is compliant, etc. And then there's a yearly review for those processes, but there's not a big overhead, right? Again, there's you lower the risk for the company when you have the automation versus having
Mm.
it relied across different teams, different people, new people, people that have experience, and probably less risk there. But again, when you put it into automation, it's a standard process that is checked yearly basis, but again, it
Okay.
delivers consistently.
Perfect one. I think that was the flagship answer that I think people might have got now. Okay. So I think we are on time, Juan. I think if you have any questions, yeah, we have one more. Uh, could you elaborate what is native solution means? So I think I'll probably start the answer. So when you say native, Raju, it's basically when you want to automate a particular process, you understand the way the automation or the application is being built. For example, the application might be built in Java or .NET. You interact with the application via their libraries. That's the nativity, right? For an example, if I have to take something outside SAP, but when it comes to SAP, you have a native language which SAP provides, which is ABAP. So if you are able to perform the same level of process, what you're trying to approach via UI-based approach, the same if you can approach it via the native programmatical language, which is called ABAP, then your efficiency is much more expanded. So the nativity is just not about picking the right technology you want to automate, but basically it is also the way you make the people who work in the enterprises also to behave natively, okay, because they are tuned to approving processes in a flow, they are tuned to requesting some self services, they're tuned to get some reports to for them to look at it. So the way you build this whole ecosystem should be very native to the enterprisey world, right? And the technology should be very, enterprise centric or technology centric. So that is what we mean by nativity. But if you have, I think people might have to hear it from you also, Juan. You don't want to believe me.
No, so to again, echoing what you're saying, Dominic, the first piece is, when you automate, one approach is again mimicking the user's actions, right? So you go through the UI process. And again, there might be cases where that is probably the only means. The whatever platform you're using doesn't allow other means to do it. But if you think about SAP and you were talking about ABAP or BAPI calls, you can again have the systems interact directly without having to render a UI, etc. And many times again, SAP in particular backend transactions have a lower latency than having a UI. It has probably processes that are optimized for those interactions. So clearly, again, those RFC calls, BAPI calls, etc., into the system are better. Same way, even if you go to web-based automations, when you think about an API call versus having a portal, and again, all that system back and forth and rendering the information, plus ads, if probably they will have, there's a lot of optimized performance there. And the other piece was back to, a lot of times UI might changes, be it something that you control with the application that you're interacting with, but even with the Windows side or whatever other machine you have, there will be changes in the components. So definitely through the native approach, you minimize all those risks. And again, when you think you'll have a long pathway to know when changes will come on functions, etc., that you're leveraging, and you can plan for that.
No, I thought that was a very detailed explanation. Raju, I think hope you have got the answer. I think we have last one more question we can take within the time frame. Did you see any risk in implementing automation for financial processes? What precautions were taken?
So there was probably again let's say it was lowering the risk actually. Again, we were just trying to get a process that was somewhat broken, and again having a lot of compliance issues. If you, let's say, if I go further into the process in itself, again, you'll think that this was spread across multiple users across the world. And back to the point, new users, etc. Following the process, sometimes it's challenging, and not from a user perspective, but even say that you need to have an approval. The user is out of the office. Who is the right approver? When you leave those questions out to potentially the end users, there might be chances that you fail on some of those pieces. So it, bringing it into the automation and having it consistently go through the steps required, and let's say having matrix or business rule based decisions versus having the user having to take that decision, again, really minimized or erased completely our risk. So definitely it was more an opportunity than a risk
lowering
to
the
go
risk.
through.
Yeah, okay. So I think the whole explanation tells that how confident that you have strategized your whole organization in terms of building a very resilient automation which runs better, efficient, and the way you have built it is extremely great one. I think the viewers would have gotten extreme inputs, and I think this 30 minutes, whatever they have spent here with us, definitely they would have got a great takeaways. And viewers, I think this is our first episode for Strategy Talks, and Juan is the prime guest, and he has given us a great experience what he had with his organization with us. And thank you so much, Juan. I think takes a lot of things to say to others, right? It means a lot. Okay,
No, thanks for
so
the invitation, and happy to share our experience with anyone out there, for sure.
yeah, I think this experience is going to give you some kind of eye openers. If you feel any questions, you can always reach out to me in LinkedIn. I always interact with my viewers with the slippery slope of automation. There's an article you can subscribe, and I'm going to come with you for a next conversation with much more interesting content. I think this is the most interesting content because it's been done by Juan. So I am specifically happy to bring that content to all of you. So thank you, viewers, for watching us today. Strategy Talks, episode 1, today with Juan, and it was an interesting conversation. Coming back to you again with our episode 2 of Strategy Talks. This is going to be published every month once, and I'm sure that it's going to give you a great experience ongoing basis. Thank you so much. Good evening, good night, good afternoon, whatever people in the world. Juan, you want to wish them, yeah? And
Yep.
we just sign off.
All time zones. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.